Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, no matter where you are or where you're going. Welcome. Thank you for tuning in. This is another episode of the Dierks and Denver Podcast. I'm Dierks with my co host Denver. And today, it's Monday, February 8th, 2021. It's the Monday after Super Bowl 55. And we're going to talk a lot about that. We're also going to get into the NFL honors and the halftime show from last night's game a little bit later, so stick around for that. But primarily, right now, we're going to talk about Super Bowl 55. Let's get right into it. Denver, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. I am doing okay. I wish the outcome would have been better last night, but it is what it is. The better team won last night, even though I wanted the Chiefs to win. But I'm doing well this morning. I'm glad that we are doing this relatively quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. We let it sit for give or take 12 hours and now we're here. We both wanted to take some time, take a couple notes on the game and let our thoughts kind of settle and not have any, not kind of knee jerk reactions to it. But we're just going to start right there. I think all right, we're back. Had to cut for some technical difficulties, but we're going to resume right where we left off. Denver had just said that the Bucs were better, and I could not agree more. Last night, it really came down to the Buccaneers, pretty much on all counts, were just simply better than the Chiefs. They were seemingly more prepared. They were more physical. Their individual talents made more plays than the Chiefs. However, for me, I don't believe that it decided the game. However, the way the game was officiated just put a permanent stain on the game for me. It didn't feel good, especially in the first half. We'll get into the officiating part a little later, but that's kind of my 10,000 foot view of this game. Bucks were better, but I'm always going to just have a bad taste in the back of my mouth based on how the game was officiated. How about you?
For me, it was more the officiating was bad. Like I agree with you there. But the one thing that stuck out to me was the lack of energy I felt the Chiefs came out with. I felt like from the first penalty they got last night, it just set the tone. I felt like they they couldn't run what I call just run and hopefully catch the ball offense. So that hurt them a lot. So the lack of energy really stumbled. Plus, you're playing against Tom freaking Brady. Like, man's not nervous about these anymore. It's like he's been married 7 times. He just knows the day. It's fine. So it's hard. I do think the Bucks defense though, they should have been the real MVP. They stepped up big. They didn't blitz a whole lot, which was shocking. So it was all that front pressure, and that made a huge difference. One of my notes I have is that the O line adjustments and the injury of Eric Fisher really ended up hurting the Chiefs overall in the grand scheme because then you have to shuffle around linemen. Your best lineman isn't even available. Who I thought if Eric Fisher was available, at least the edge pressure probably would have been put off a little bit. So give or take, that's how I would put my 10,000 foot view of this overall game.
No, I agree. Let's stick on that for a little bit. For our video audience, I'm gonna throw up on the screen right now. Here's the ESPN page for last night's game. We're gonna get into some other stuff too. As Denver was talking about, the offensive line troubles for the Chiefs really made Mahomes' job. I mean, I'm gonna say next to impossible. I mean, that dude was running for his life. That's not the style of play that the Chiefs are used to at all. They're used to Mahomes, ad-libbing a little bit, but I have a tweet out here, right? And I think it's this one. If you just look at this from Sports Center, according to Next Gen Stats, Patrick Mahomes ran a total of 497 yards before his passes and sacks last night in the Super Bowl. That's insane. The dude was under pressure all night long. I mean, that's credit to the Bucs defense, no doubt. But as you also hinted at, right? I mean, the offensive line was just in shambles. I went and did a little further digging last night because I knew vaguely the situation, but I didn't realize quite how bad it was. From their opening day starters this year, when they played the Texans back in early September, only two of the five offensive linemen who started that game made it to the Super Bowl. And that was Austin Ritter, the center, and Wiley, who ended up starting at one of the tackle spots last night. I believe he was the right tackle, but he normally plays, I believe it's right guard. And
Yes.
you could also then take it one step further, and while Wiley was their starter, I believe all season when he was healthy, he wouldn't have even been the starter had a very impactful opt out as it would happen. Laurent Duvernay Tardif,
Oh, yeah.
their normal right guard. Obviously, what he's doing up in Canada, very noble. We're not gonna chastise him for opting out. I think he did it for the right reasons. But that meant that only one guy who would have started for the Chiefs all season, if things were normal, only one of their five offensive linemen made it to the Super Bowl, and that's just not a recipe for success. Um,
One of my
it's just
notes here,
crazy.
because you started talking about how the Mahomes stat of running 497 yards before getting tackled for a sack or possession loss, whatever,
Hmm.
is Mahomes just kept trying. At one point in that game, especially in the second half, I really looked over, and Grammy, who is my girlfriend's grandma, we were watching the game, and I said it just looks like the entire offense just doesn't care, and Mahomes is the only one trying to come out on that top. Mahomes kept going as hard as he could, and I give that man absolute credit. A lot of people probably would have felt defeated at that point, but he just kept going. I There was a picture on Twitter. I wish I would have saved it and sent it, but he's like diving out completely like stretched out, and he's throwing the ball like that's some intense like leadership, like never giving up. And I just felt like that offense really was giving up at near the end of that game.
No doubt that I give a lot of credit to Pat Mahomes because he was obviously under fire all night, playing with a turf toe, as reported several times. That's got to not be fun. He's less mobile than normal anyway, and to have to do what he did, I give him a lot of credit. I'm not trying to make any real excuses for the Chiefs, but to not acknowledge the fact that the game might have been a little different if the offensive line could hold up a little better. I think that would be an understatement right there. Uh, on that same vein, I'm kind of afraid. I'm not maybe not afraid, but I can't help but worry that in the long term, this part of the game is going to be forgotten. Right? It's going to be remembered for Brady's seventh ring, which great accomplishment since we haven't talked on it already. Brady getting a seventh ring. I mean, if he wasn't already the greatest team sport athlete in the history of North American sports, I think he's got that title now, and it doesn't look like he's going to slow down anytime soon either, and that's absolutely terrifying for the rest of the league. But more
I,
so than anything that the Bucs did, I felt like the Chiefs beat themselves, and it started right up with that offensive line struggling.
just one quick note. It's one of my notes just because you mentioned it, but I literally have here that Brady is the greatest across all sports at this point.
Yeah,
That man's probably gonna get he could very well get another ring. first off, at 44 years old, like that's insane. But the man just doesn't stop, like you said.
It's just
It's
impressive. There's
incredible.
there's no other way to put it. There's really not
Yeah.
words. I have a couple other tweets to share with the audience that just kind of illustrate our point even further. And now that I've fixed the screen, so for our video watchers, I apologize. There was some technical difficulties on that last time I shared the screen like this. But we're back. A tweet from Roger Sherman, who works for The Ringer, a news organization I follow quite closely. Mahomes has thrown the 7 best incompletions in NFL history tonight. That's really what it felt like.
Yeah.
On top of the fact that he was running for his life, he had some, I feel like, very untimely drops. You think very early in that game, Tyreek Hill dropped one that was in the front corner of the end zone that would have been 6 points, where he kind of got both hands on it, but let it go and just hit him right in the mouth. And then another one on, I think it was third down shortly thereafter. Kelsey dropped a big one that would have extended a drive. That hurt. And then the last one that really stands out to me was early in that fourth quarter when the Chiefs, like, it was their last kind of real opportunity to get themselves back in that game. Darrell Williams dropped a pass very similar to the Tyreek Hill one. I think it like hit him. I think it went through his hands and hit him like
Right
right
in
in
the
the
helmet.
neck, right in the neck or the helmet. Yeah, on fourth down, and they turned the ball back over on downs to the Bucs, and from there it was really over. Jim Nantz and Tony Romo did their best to try to keep some drama in it, and like they really milked that thing. But after that possession early in the fourth quarter, when the Chiefs were still down 3 possessions, everyone knew that it was over. It was going to be a tall task to begin with, but after that, there was absolutely no hope for the
You
Chiefs to
just
come back in
mentioned
that game.
you mentioned Tony Romo, and I loved it last night. We were sitting here, and Tony Romo like 4 times said, "If there was ever a chance to have a comeback, it's right now." Starting in the third quarter. I
Announcing at
love
its
his
finest.
effort,
I
man.
absolutely love Jim Nantz and Tony Romo, but last night wasn't really the game they wanted to call. I know that for a fact. They didn't want to call a blowout, and because there's just no drama left in it, right? It really kind of limits you from a broadcast standpoint. I get it. Here's some more just to really drive home the point, because again, I don't want this to be forgotten, because as well as the Bucs played, and the Bucs would have won almost no matter what. I'm going to say like 95 times out of 100 you play that game, I think the Bucs win just due to the circumstances. But Brady was only pressured on about 10% of dropbacks in the first half, Mahomes 57. For the game, Mahomes was pressured on 29 out of 56 dropbacks, which was the most in Super Bowl history. And Brady was pressured on 4 out of 30, which was out of his 10 appearances the least he's ever been pressured. And I really appreciate Mina Kimes, who's also a really great journalist. Love what she does. Um, I should add, some of Mahomes' high pressure numbers are a product of him holding onto the ball for a long time, which is a product of both good coverage and also because he was bailing on trash pockets. Everything feeds on each other, etc., etc. And then another stat that she quote tweeted from a Pro Football Focus member. Love what they do as well. Mahomes was under pressure in 2.5 seconds or less on 24 plays, which was 43% of his dropbacks, apparently. And for Brady, it was just 3 such plays. That was another thing that, a lot of people were going to say, well, he was running around like an idiot and like just wouldn't get rid of the ball. Well, he was running around like an idiot almost from the jump on all of those occasions. So that's really not an argument in my mind. It was just a rough game all around for the Chiefs offense. They never really got their rhythm going like we're used to seeing them, and it showed, because I don't think anyone would have guessed the final score would be 31-9 for either side in this game.
One thing I want to mention as we continue, these stats you're pulling up specifically with Tom Brady being pressured only 4 out of 30 times. one thing I could not get over last night was how bad the actual Chiefs defense is. I said this all year to Grammy. When we'd watch the games on Sunday, I said that the Chiefs are super good. They're super talented, but their defense is horrendous overall. It's it's not good, like, at all. I saw every Chiefs game this year because I live in this area, so we get every single game. And their defense was poor, and it showed last night how bad it truly is. I told Grammy, and you'll hear me say that a lot this podcast. I kept telling Grammy, if I was the Chiefs front office, I would spend every last dime in free agency on getting defensive players. I would draft defensive players. Like, that would be my goal.
Well, that's the tough part, right? I mean, we acknowledged as much on Wednesday when we recorded kind of our preview episode that obviously the Chiefs aren't known for their defensive effort, right? They have some really good players, Chris Jones and Tyrann Mathieu come to mind as they're all world talents, but everywhere else you have what are probably like replacement level and below, and in the long term that's just not sustainable. You saw it last night especially when you give an offense with Tom Brady on it, especially again 2 weeks to prepare for a defense that really isn't ultra complicated, isn't super stout, doesn't have studs all over the place on defense. They're gonna have an attempt, a really good attempt to solve you, and that's exactly what the combination of Brady and Bruce Arians and Byron Leftwich did. Like they absolutely unlocked that defense. There for most of the middle two quarters, it didn't even look like the Bucs were really trying to move the ball down the field. They were just doing it effortlessly, and that can't happen. It's not quite like it was a year ago when the Chiefs were able to kind of buckle down and get the stops they needed down the stretch against San Francisco. I mean, this is the greatest offense of all time, or greatest player of all time, leading a very capable offense, rather. And
One thing
you
I
just
want to
can't get away with that.
One thing I want to mention, when this really started to pick up, like in the game, like the Buccaneers' aggressiveness, is this little feud between Brady and Tyrann Mathieu. I'll say this: I've never seen Brady chase after another guy like the way he did Tyrann Mathieu. He was going for him. He Tyrann said some smack to him, and Brady said, "Okay, like you really want to do this? You're 5'8". I'm the greatest quarterback of all time. Like I'm going to throw the ball constantly at you and get you upset and irritated and make you do stupid things on defense, pass interference calls, etc." So that is one thing that I was totally shocked by, the aggressiveness that Tom Brady came out when people came up to him. He stepped up. Not saying he never did that, never not did that, but he just you saw it last night, right? You saw that little bickering that really, once that started, you saw the Buccaneers just their offense just go nuts. Now some of the penalties caused that, but Brady was rolling after that.
Yeah, that moment you spoke of just now with Brady and Tyrann Mathieu kind of getting at it there toward the end of the second quarter. I think that's a perfect kind of transition point to start talking about a little bit of the weird officiating in this game, if you're ready to move on to that.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Okay, so what I want to point out is obviously we can't hear what's being said in that moment, right? But Tyrann Mathieu doesn't shove Brady or any of the Bucs players, and conversely, Brady doesn't shove Tyrann Mathieu or any of the Chiefs players. And it looks like they're just they're mouthing off to each other, but somehow they call a unsportsmanlike conduct on Mathieu that really didn't end up meaning anything, right? But that was a confusing penalty to me. I just felt like as I mentioned earlier, the refs tried to maybe they weren't actively trying, but they made this game way too much about what they were doing, especially in that first half. I have the number here. It was something like some at one point the Chiefs were penalized 9 times for 100 yards
Yep.
to the Bucs 1 penalty for 5 yards.
Yep.
And
That was that was when I said it was over.
I'm not saying it was rigged or anything like that. People that say that it's just hyperbolic, but it just felt weird to me, especially um, a lot of these instances where the Chiefs got called for like holding or PI like 3 times on a drive, and I'm not saying they weren't penalties, but some of them felt really kind of I don't know, trivial. And the thing that I can't shake is when Mahomes is running around for his life and keeps the play alive for 8, 9, 10 seconds. Are you really telling me that on the back end the Bucs are absolutely perfect the whole time too? Like that
Well,
that
and here's one thing that drove me up the wall. There was a pass interference call last night on like a he threw it
Yep,
deep to Mike Evans,
I know
and
exactly what you're talking about. And before you move on, I'm just gonna pull it up on the screen. It's right here. A tweet from Warren Sharp. I love this man. Listen to him for a lot of betting advice. He's on several podcasts. Are you fucking telling me this was a catchable pass? We'll just
right?
play,
No, he's
play
gonna
this
dive
real
eight
quick.
yards.
I don't know who the fuck is catching that football. I, we see all these on Sunday Night Football, especially the Amazon Web Service, next gen stats, like catch probability and stuff like that. I wish AWS would fucking tell me how anyone is going to catch that ball.
It's impossible. I don't. Is he 20 feet tall? Like, is he just like really? No, the one I'm talking about was, I think the one right before it, where he threw it like 50 yards down the field, and
Okay,
Mike
that was,
Evans.
I think that was PI. Personally, I think that was PI.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Really?
Okay, because what you don't understand is when contact was made, it was like, a half second before the ball gets there. Mike Evans is a big dude and a long strider. If they said it on broadcast too, I agree. I mean, he's striding, like 3, 4 yards at a time. Um, and if he lays out for that, that's a very catchable ball. I think it is because the defender probably took him back at least 3 or 4 yards, a full step at least, and the ball wasn't overthrown by it wasn't 15 yards. It wasn't something egregious. I think he could have. I'm not saying he would have made the catch. I'm saying he had the opportunity to at least make a play on the ball, and that's the intent of the rule. So I will
Well,
defend
then
the
that's
refs
just
on
the
that one.
bias in me. It's just the bias in me then. But the play you have up right now, it's exactly what you're saying. I
Oh,
don't know
oh.
who's catching that. I don't know.
Now
Like what?
you can't tell the distance. You can approximate, right, the distance between the back of the end zone and here,
Yeah.
but this ball hits the wall. Well, it short hops the wall. It basically lands at the base of the wall. I mean, that's probably like at least 5, 6 yards out of bounds. I mean, right here, the ball's not even in the frame. I mean, the ball's even with the goalpost. Mike Evans is going to have to absolutely moss Tyrann Mathieu to even make an attempt at that's no. I disagree completely on this one, and that was pretty much the final straw because that led to the Bucs' final touchdown there before the half, and we saw it in Green Bay 2 weeks ago. If you are letting this offense pretty much get free possessions, like the Chiefs' clock management was a little questionable there. They gifted Tampa Bay a timeout on that final drive and stuff, but if you're giving them an opportunity to put 7 more points on the board right here before the half, that really it felt like the end. And I'm sure if you go and look at like the win probability here, I mean this has got to be right here. I mean they were almost 90% to win at halftime. Like that it
Which is
switched
insane.
it switched it from low 70s or more to 90 plus. That really was the defining drive of the game. If the Chiefs either do more than kick a field goal on their drive, right? Because I'm pretty sure that's what happened right before that. Yeah, they kicked a field
Yep.
goal. If they somehow get in the end zone there, it's 10-14, and then you don't let them drive the field on you in 55 seconds and score a touchdown of their own, the game might end up at least feeling a little different. But it was a train wreck. We'll just kind of leave it at that.
So one thing to transition into that's not about officiating that I really think was is kind not overlooked, but it's not talked about. I don't feel like it'll be talked about that much in the Super Bowl. Was actually how good the Bucs defense played. We talked about it prior to starting. The Bucs defense really played how they wanted to play, and Mahomes couldn't do anything. Like that was, I saw like a defensive formation that I was like, what does this look like? It looked kind of funky to me, but it was just a four-man rush from the line.
Well,
Everyone else played zone.
I believe, and this could be wrong, but I believe that actually, like true blitz packages, Todd Bowles only ran like 5 all night long.
Yes,
Um,
4 or 5.
so the majority of his pressures were with 4 men or less, and that again just goes back to highlight how depleted and how incapable the front five of the Chiefs were last night. But if you're at that on the other side of that, to illustrate your point of, the Bucs defense wasn't going to let anything happen, because if you're dropping 7 men every time and you're getting instant pressure on the quarterback's not going to be able to do anything. The
Yeah.
reason quarterbacks make plays off of blitzes and stuff is because usually it leaves a man open, because you're blitzing 5, you're blitzing 6, something crazy, and that always leaves a hole somewhere. But the way the Bucs were able to pressure Mahomes last night with only 4 dudes, there was nothing he could do.
I One thing I thought was interesting, and it was an unsportsmanlike call, was the Winfield deuces to Tyreek at the end of the game. What a ballsy thing to do, because I'm gonna tell you, they have to play next year in the regular season because they were in a matchup in the Super Bowl. That game's gonna be stupid intense.
What do you mean?
Like there's no way the NFL's not booking this.
These guys won't
Like
these guys won't play again for 4 years unless it's in the Super Bowl.
okay, that's weird then, because I heard, okay, I again maybe it's just me hearing something wrong through the grapevine, but I thought the previous Super Bowl matchup ended up having to play the following year during the regular season
I don't think
at some
so.
point. Huh? Huh?
I know at some point the NFL's talked about, how like it's rotating, like, the like this year,
Divisions?
the Steelers and the AFC North played all of the NFC East. Now I know at some point the NFL is talking about reducing the amount of in-conference games, and then you're going to always, like, it's going to be that rotating basis with one other division in the opposite conference. But they're also going to add they're going to take away 2 in-conference games and replace them with 2 out-of-conference games. Now I don't know when
Oh.
that's going to happen. Maybe that happens soon, and that's what you heard. I don't know when that's coming into effect. But since these guys played in the regular season, the AFC West and the NFC South won't play again until 2024.
I gotcha. Okay, that was my bad. Sorry, information for the people watching this. I spread false news, so I'm sorry.
But that's about all I have, to be honest. I don't know if you have any other high level thoughts. It really came down to me. Bucks defense was elite, as they've been most of the season, and that was, you know, even further impactful because of the Chiefs' kind of iniquities at the offensive line positions outside of center, and At
I
this
only have
point,
one last comment.
Brady's looking almost immortal, right? We talked about it on Wednesday. Mahomes kind of had to have this game unless they get a rematch again in the next couple of years before Brady retires. Right now, it's looking like a tall task. But go ahead.
My one last comment about this whole thing is overview. I'm looking into the future. I'm thinking about this game. I'm thinking about this season. I am predicting way too early that this is the Super Bowl again next year.
I could
Tampa's not
100%
getting
see
any
that.
worse. Tampa's not getting any worse, and the Chiefs O line hopefully will be back next year. Mahomes is getting some surgery on some turf toe. I think this week or next week to start his off season. If you didn't know, he had turf toe, and so that's my prediction already. I don't see anyone from the NFC coming in and beating the Bucs, who are stupid good. And the AFC, I don't see anyone overall beating the Chiefs. So that's my last comment about this game. But overall, we said defense. Defense wins championships, and that's what happened last night.
I would have to agree with you. I think this is probably the most likely Super Bowl matchup for next year. I know, I think I saw with like the betting odds and stuff, for some reason, the Packers are still the way too early betting favorite to make it out of NFC, but that could all change if Rodgers leaves. That's a discussion for another time. So we'll just leave it at maybe we get round two next year. Only time's gonna tell. And I think we now can safely move on, forget about this game a little bit. Again, congratulations to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, second ever Super Bowl. Tom Brady, his seventh ring individually, and hopefully we get something as a better game next year. That's all we can hope for,
Yeah.
right?